Thank you. My name is Noel, and I'm an alcoholic. Hope you can hear me out there. If you can't, move up closer. We have a beach meeting on Sunday morning, and as the summer gets on with the weather, we call them foul weather drunks, fair weather drunks, and all weather drunks. And the fair weather drunks come down in the summertime to the meeting and get their rays and all that down on the beach. And they keep belly aching because as the meeting gets bigger, of course, the circle of people get further and further away from the center of the meeting, and they bitch they can't hear. And I keep saying, you know, if you can't hear, for God's sake, move up forward, except newcomers. Now, please, newcomers, most of the directions I give you here tonight don't apply to you, because I'd hate to have you come sit in the front row and catch this disease, because it's contagious. And I didn't. Of course, I sat in the back of the room. It's part of my pitch. I'll explain later. But it is a very contagious disease. And if you hang around here, you will accomplish one thing, if nothing else. You'll just ruin your drinking, you know. So if you're not serious, I suggest if you think you're going to go out and drink some more, that just don't ruin it. Get it on, you know. Go out there and get it on until you're ready, and then come back in, and then come up and sit in the front row, because you just may save your own life. Anyhow, I did say I was an alcoholic. I like to say in a group like this, I'm an alcoholic. Everybody else has hyphenated titles, so I decided I'd get mine in there. I never had any problem with the rest of that garbage. I was a coward, and I knew that if you got caught with that crap, that you go to jail. You know, it was bad enough going to jail with booze, but when you get caught with the rest of that stuff, there was a felony in those days, and I just, the prospect of going to jail, Mama didn't raise no jailbird. Sorry about that, Mama, but I wasn't raised to be a jailbird, and I didn't mess around with any of that stuff. And in some ways, thank God I didn't, due to the fact that I don't know where it would have led me. I remember I had a white once, and I licked my lips for 48 hours and ended up with my face in a plate full of spaghetti, and that's my only experience with that. So you can leave me out of that end of it. I don't envy the dual addicted coming in and having to kick both habits, but I'm a three-fingered nose picker, and I had to stop that in public too. See, so anyhow, we'll get on with my alcoholism. I'm not really an exciting drunk, folks. Probably since you're all out-of-towners, you've never heard my pitch, so with the exception of Dave, and you can leave if you want to. I'm not an exciting drunk. I never really did anything too exciting, unless throwing a bag of ground round across the 2nd Street in the middle of the afternoon was exciting. I mean, I just never really did anything that was exciting, and everybody said, well, you owned a couple of bars, why didn't you put some of those bar stories in there? And you see, folks, you did those things. You folks out there danced on the tabletops, and you people were the ones that peed in your pants and beat each other over the head with the cue sticks. I sat on the end of the bar and got drunk. You know, I mean, I was such an exciting drunk that I had standing orders from my bartenders that I was 86 at 8 o'clock. I was the only bartender I know that had standing orders to 86 himself at his own bar, you know. And if they didn't, they were fired. And that was as simple as it was. And I don't care how obnoxious I was, it was out. I knew in those days that I was trouble. But I didn't start out that way. I started out drinking. We were at a drive-in, and somebody had some slow gin and lemonade or something like that. I forget what it was. Slow gin and 7-Up or something. I forget. And I drank as much as I could because I didn't know any better. I got drunker than I knew how to get drunk, and I puked all over the side of the car. Was no big thing to me. My mother thought it was when she came out there and we were trying to wash off the side of this guy's car. But I didn't get on restriction or anything for that because my mother was an alcoholic. I can't say that, excuse me. I don't like to judge anyone alcoholic. She never did find this program. She was a drunk. Drunks are drunks, alkies are alkies. The difference between a drunk and an alkie is I go to meetings. My mother never went to any meetings. She died of this disease. I don't know if alcoholism is hereditary. But I do know that my mother and my father both died alcohol-related deaths. My grandmother and grandfather also died alcohol-related deaths. So whether that gives me the title of hereditary alcoholic or not, I can't really say. The chances are pretty good, but since the medical profession hasn't come out and tagged it, I'm not going to profess to be a psychologist or a professor of any kind. This is another thing that I dislike on the program is our physicians who aren't licensed running around Alcoholics Anonymous prescribing drugs or not prescribing drugs and telling other people on the program who have a prescription not to take it. Unless you're standing there with a license and a shingle and an education to prescribe medicine, maybe it should be that you shouldn't. I don't prescribe medicine. I don't drink alcohol. That's what I do best in Alcoholics Anonymous. Being an alcoholic, I don't drink alcohol. And they told me in the beginning, it's very simple, Noel, just don't drink. And if I can install in a newcomer, and basically I'm speaking to the newcomers here tonight, if I can install anything in your mind tonight, it's, for God's sake, don't drink. Don't drink. You know, even if your ass falls off. If it falls off, we'll teach you a new way to sit. You know, it's real simple. This program is extremely easy, extremely simple. There's absolutely nothing to it. We only ask you to come in here, stop doing what you crave 24 hours a day, and turn your life around 180 degrees, and nothing else. You know, it's nothing to it. I didn't know that when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I was awarded this program by the courts. I got arrested for the second time, and I was facing, it was either 1 year in jail or 3 months in AA. And, you know, the prospect of going to jail for a year just didn't really impress me any. So I decided to take A&A for 3 months and go to what they call the Lucky Deuce program. Now, prior to that, I had, as I said, owned bars and I drank. I am a drunk. I'm a good drunk. I'm probably a best drunk I know of. If you didn't drink like I drank, I didn't drink with you. And I consume vast quantities of ale. I'm a beeraholic. You know, there's alcoholics, there's winos, and there's even some winettes. But I'm a beeraholic. In fact, and I get to do this at meeting. In fact, I like beer so much that I even had it tattooed on my arm, saying, I got a tattoo of a beer mug on my arm, so I can take my coat off. Sorry, pull down, that's good. Make an impression, Noel. Here you come to Solvang, you get to step up in the world. So I used to drink vast quantities of ale and I'd get drunk. And that's what I did best. I never really did anything good or succeeded in anything as good or as well as I succeeded in drinking and getting drunk. And if you people say you're alcoholics like I say I'm alcoholics, chances are you're just about as good a drunk as I am. So there's really no sense in me going into impressing you on how good a drunk I was, because you probably could match story for story. What I like to talk about is, rather than what happened, or excuse me, what it was like, what happened, because that was exciting to me. Recovery in itself today is exciting to me. But what happened to me in the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it was a miracle for me, was what I want to talk about tonight. And I want to direct it to the newcomer due to the fact that it's possible for these things to happen to you if you'll just open your mind. When I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I had this chicken shit little court card, you know. I don't know, do they have that up here when they send you to court? And I had this court card. Now, if I didn't get this court card signed, I was going to go to jail. And I knew it because I'd signed a piece of paper saying that I had to follow this thing out. And if I took a drink within this period of time, that I would go to jail for 1 year. So I went right down, of course. Mama never raised no genius, but she never raised no idiot. I went right down and got on antabuse. I knew I'd drink, so if I knew if I was on antabuse, that I wouldn't drink. Now, I don't recommend that. It's my pitch and my story. This is what I did. And I got on this antabuse, and I called up A&A because I had to go to these meetings or I'd go to jail. You know, and when you got the gun against you and you're going to go to jail, you'll go to any lengths if you're like me. So I called up A&A and I said to central office, I said, where do I go to a meeting? I got to have my court card signed. And they led me out to a place in Garden Grove called the Garden Grove Alano Club. And in those days, it was upstairs. And first of all, let's picture Noel as he walked through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't come to you people in a three-piece suit and tie. I didn't come to you with my hair stuck in a light socket. And I didn't come to you with a clean-shaven face. I came to you with hair down to my shoulders and a full beard and mustache, and I wore the robin's egg blue shirt with the name on it and the dirty blue slacks that, you know, oil field workers wear. And I usually lived in them most of the time. I was not a very clean person to be around, and I didn't care. I just didn't care. Days would go by and I wouldn't bathe or shower. I didn't bathe. I wouldn't shower because I just didn't care. I was working in the fields, and I just, you know, my attitude was, the oil wells don't give a damn what I smell like. And I just didn't care. You know, I just didn't give a damn. I didn't care whether I lived or died. I didn't care whether I had a family. I didn't care whether, I just didn't care. Give me my drinks, and that's all I cared. So I come out of this court card thing. Now, I wasn't ready to quit drinking when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and if you're in here and you've had a couple of belts, welcome. If they didn't let drunks into Alcoholics Anonymous, I don't know if I'd be here or not. So I came in rip snorting. I mean, you know, filthy ass dirty, rummy looking, and drunkard in hell. And I'm staggering around looking for this meeting because it's upstairs, and this guy taps me on the shoulder. He says, "You looking for a meeting, Alcoholics Anonymous?" And I thought, how in the hell do you know? You know? I guess some of you look like that too, didn't you? Anyhow, I went into this meeting, and he said, "Put your card in the basket," and I did, and I looked down, and Christ, the basket was full of cards. And I thought, well, if they're doing here what I'm doing here, I ain't going to get anything out of this deal. Because if I was not there to get your program, and I was not there to get any help. I was there to stay out of jail. And don't get me wrong, I didn't come to AA full of God and peace and beauty and wisdom. I came here with a 400-pound resentment on this shoulder and a 400-pound ego on this shoulder, and there's no way in the world you were going to tell me anything except get me out of jail. That's all I wanted. And you said it was okay, just keep coming back. So I left that meeting and I went back down, and of course I never went back there for a couple, 3 years because I thought that's all they did there was just not go to jail. I didn't know anything about program or anything. But I ended up moving. My wife and I had had an altercation. I say she threw me out. She says, "No, you stomped out." So we'll just call it an altercation, and I was out, okay, for her peace and quiet, and that's the way it had to be. Part of my story is, and I tend to forget in the end of it, I was allowed to return to my family later. My wife is sitting in the room here with me tonight. But my wife and I had had an altercation, and I was out on the bricks, and I was living in my camper, and in my job I had, before this, a friend of mine said, "Well, there's a place you can live over in Long Beach. It's behind the house that he lived in. It was off of Anaheim Street, about a block off Anaheim Street on the east side of Anaheim and Long Beach. The west side's kind of derelict row, but I was on the east side of Anaheim Street, a little bit higher. And it was one of those guest lean-tos behind the garage that they have, little rentals they have in Long Beach. And it was, he said, "You really don't want it." And I said, "Well, you know, right now I don't have anything. I'll take most anything." And this was just about most anything. We went in there, and the guy who lived there had not cleaned the place and not taken out the trash for a long period of time. And the place was just swarming with flies, and it was just covered with maggots and bugs, and it was really filthy. And old Mad Dog, first of all, do you know that, you know, if you're drunk like I am and you got a mouth like I got, when you're sitting in a bar, you got to have some big dude sit next to you that you're buying him drinks so that he'll stand up for you, right? And I had Mad Dog and Buffalo Bob and guys like that I always had good money, and we got along real good because when the guy turned around to smack me one, Mad Dog would stand up when he's built like a mad dog, and you just didn't mess around with Mad Dog. He was a rugger. We were talking about that coming up in the Santa Barbara rugby tournament we came up to one year. And the ruggers, by the way, the hero of the rugby game is the guy who gets back from the hospital before the game's over. Anyhow, he was nuts, crazy, and still is, and he's sober today, though, thank God. And he went in with me to help me clean it up, and he came out and he says, "I can't go back in there, Noel." He says, "That's Maggot Manor." And that name stuck. And from then on, I lived in Maggot Manor off Anaheim Street in a lean-to behind a garage, behind a garage, behind a garage, off Anaheim Street in Long Beach, and that's where I ended up. And I ended up in that place for one reason, because it was quiet. And the reason I ended up in there is because I had to learn that Noel had to live with Noel. Nothing could fix Noel if Noel couldn't fix Noel. And when you're all alone in your own place and there's nobody around, nobody to fix it, nobody to take care of it, nobody to handle it, you got to do it yourself. And I've turned to a lot of people and said, hey, the reason that you're not with your spouse, husband or wife, is because you got to live by yourself for a while. Learn to live and take care of who you are and be who you are and find out who you are. How can you fix it if you don't know what's wrong with it? How can you take care of it if you don't know how to? How can you work your own life if you don't know who you are? So anyhow, I ended up in Old Maggot Manor, and I went up to the front house, up the big house, we called it, in the front, and I used their phone, and I called up this A&A because I had to have the chicken shit court card signed because I was going to go to jail, right? You got to have that sucker signed. Now, I didn't know, newcomer, for you, just for you in this meeting tonight, I'll tell you any bartender can sign a court card. They never check. Never check. In fact, if you got good, quick hands, you can sign your own about 15 times. You don't have to come back. Anyhow, I called up Central Office, Long Beach, and I said, I got to go to A&A. Where do I go? And they said, and what had happened to me is I'd gotten injured at work, and I had my hand was all bandaged up, and this big gloppy bandage, and it was oozing, and it was all the skin was falling off or taken off, and I had this thing with a stinky shirt and a long beard and a grubby hair, and I mean, I was ripe, folks. I mean, you know. And I called up Central Office, Long Beach, and I said, where do you go to this A&A because I don't want to go to jail? And they said, are you working? And I looked at my hand. I said, no, I wasn't working. And they said, well, go down to this place. They have an afternoon meeting. It's called a round table. And yeah, somebody knows the round table. My dearly beloved hostess. Man, isn't that nice? Anyhow, I had a pickup truck in those days. Now, can you imagine trying to shift gears in a pickup truck with a hand in the air, and I couldn't even button my own fly, and I had to get my hand cut. And anyhow, I got down to this round table, and I walked in the door of the round table. Do you have Alano clubs up here? Okay. Now, I don't know. I've never been up here before, but I want to picture your Alano club, just like every other Alano club I've ever been in. In the door, next to the door, as you walk in the Alano club, there's some old geezer who's about 3 days older than God, right? And he's got 400 years of sobriety, if a day, and a cane. There's one up here, right? Got a cane. And I walked in the door of that Alano club. She knows the guy right back there. She knows who I'm talking about. And I walked in, and old Daytime Mac was there with his cane. He wrapped me upside the ankle, and he says, sit down, shut up, asshole. You know him. You've been out here. So you be lucky you catch alcoholism. You'd be unlucky you go back to jail where you came from. And I thought, how in the hell's he know? You know? You always knew. You always knew what was going on. I went in the round table, and I sat down in the back of the round table, and I shook it out. I didn't know about recovery homes, and I didn't know about hospitals, and I didn't have any money to go to either one anyhow. I was broke, I was unemployed and unemployable. My wife and family were in Huntington Beach, and I didn't have any money to give them. A little money did come in. I gave as much as I could to them and still keep my rent going, and there was just, you know, to go in those days to buy a chicken for dinner was a thrill. And we'd put upon our money together, and we'd eat together and share together, and that's how I survived. And in the afternoons, somebody'd say, Noel, let's go out and I'll buy you a sandwich. And I never had, I could work on a guy's car, or like Carol's, she started me with a plug in my fingers in the light socket thing with my hair. She said, you know, I'll cut your hair if you wash the windows. And I washed the windows of her beauty parlor, and she cut my hair, and then I shaved my beard off. And what happened with that was, and I'm not, no disrespect to beards, but I looked around the room in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I didn't see too many beards. And I didn't see too much long hair. Saw a lot of white hair, and I couldn't do much about that. But I wanted what you had. And the only way I knew to get it was to do what you did. That's what they told me. This wasn't the first time, this was the second time. And eventually I had to shave because I wanted to look like you, and I had to get clean clothes because I wanted to be like you, and I had to clean up my mouth because I wanted to talk like you. And I had to clean up my mind because that's what happens when you don't drink and you come around Alcoholics Anonymous. So I went to this round table thing, and I sat in the back, and I walked in the back of the room, and I sat down in Serenity Row in the back, you know, or the Half Measures corner where you got your walls on either side because you know they're there and they're going to get you. And I shook it out, and I did the newcomer bounce. You know what the newcomer bounce is? That's when you're new and you bounce from chair to chair to chair and you spill coffee along the way. And the old timers come over and they fill your coffee cup up and they say, keep coming back. You'll get better, you know. And they got that sick goddamn AA smile. You're right on schedule, you know. And I'm going, what's a schedule? What's a schedule? Have you had a drink? No, you're right on schedule. The other one used to get me was, what's a program? I'd say, I hear you got an AA program. What's a program? Well, your program's your business, they'd say. And I'd say, well, what's a program? Well, have you had a drink? Well, no. Well, you got a program. What program? What do you mean a program? Well, have you had a drink? No. Well, that's your program. Whatever you did today to not drink is your program. Your program's different than my program, but whatever you did must have worked because you haven't had a drink. Now, if you're having a problem with that, change your program. You know. Let me first explain the round table to you a little bit. I talk a lot about the round table because it was so instrumental in my philosophies. The round table group, Alcoholics Anonymous, is a two-stepper group. They make absolutely no bones about it. They believe in the first and 12th step only, and the rest of them in between are your business if you want to work them. The first step is you don't drink alcohol. And the reason you don't drink alcohol is because you got all screwed up when you did drink alcohol. And the 12th step is after you don't drink alcohol for a while, turn around and tell the next sick puke that walks through the door, don't drink alcohol. Okay? The rest of it's your business. And I says, how about this second step, this God thing? They said, well, what do you want to know about God? I said, well, you got to do this God thing. He says, no, you don't have to do it. If you don't do the second step, you can't get the program. If you don't get the program, you probably get drunk, and if you get drunk, you got two choices. You can either die or come back, and if you come back, you get another shot at the second step again. So it's really your business. They said, Noel, there's only two things you need to know about God. And this is one, there is one, and two, you ain't it. You know, it's real simple. And I says, well, you know, I come from this God, this Catholic God with a bolt of lightning coming down, and I know if I walk into a church, he's going to nail me. You're going to hell, and you don't hang around with a God who's going to send you to hell. And you're telling me I'm supposed to have a God I can feel comfortable with? Guy's going to send me into oblivion and hell? Damnation for the rest of eternity. They said, you didn't get the idea. I said, we didn't ask you to get that God. We said, ask you to get a God of your understanding. And we didn't say God. There they don't say God. They don't hold hands. They don't pray except the serenity prayer. And they leave that judgment up to you. So what the old-timers said to me, they said, sit down, Noel. And I sat down. They said, stand up. And I did what I was told in those days. I stood up. And they said, now try that without a chair. And I said, that's dumb. I'll fall flat on my ass. They said, well, then the chair is your higher power because it's a power greater than yourself. It holds you up. I says, that's dumb. They said, go open the door. I opened the door. I said, shut the door. I shut the door. I said, try that without a doorknob. You know? He said, it doesn't matter what it is. It only matters that you accept the fact that there is a power greater than yourself. Since I have been on the program, coming in with that was okay. See, I could grasp that. I grasped the simple little things because my head wasn't working too well on the big philosophies. Some of the philosophies I hear on the Alcoholics Anonymous, I sit back and I think, my God, if I was new coming in with that crap thrown at me, I'd have just sat down and cried because I couldn't have gotten it. You know, I can understand a little of it today that you tried to feed me about this great philosophy in Alcoholics Anonymous. But boy, when I was new, I couldn't. And if you're new, please. And I say anything you don't understand, forget it. You know, just don't drink. Just don't drink. And that's what they told me. Just don't drink. The rest of it will come along in time. God will come to you. You don't have to go to God. Just let... Now, another thing they told me, which really helped out a lot, is it's got all these steps. 12 steps, you got to do all this making. They said, Noel, for God's sake, if you can't handle it, don't do it. You know, don't work the program. Let the program work you. Because they knew from experience of watching lots of alcoholics that you never do anything until you have to anyhow. I mean, you tell an alcoholic what to do and he's going to tell you where to go. Right? Work the steps, screw you. You know? Do your fourth, hang it. You know? You got to be kidding me. How do you start your fourth? You pick up a pencil. It's real simple. But they didn't bother with any of that there. They said, that's your business. You can do that or else you can be in pain. It's that simple. If you don't want to be in pain, you're going to have to work the program. No problem. Just don't drink. Don't drink. The other thing about with the narcotics thing or the dope is they understood that if you don't drink and you go to Alcoholics Anonymous and you adhere to the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, the rest of the crap's got to go anyhow. So they don't push that because they know if you're working a good program, it's got to go anyhow. You can't put two things in the same space. It's impossible. You can't turn to me and clear-eyed look me in the eye and say I'm clean, or not clean, but sober, and be stoned. It just doesn't work. It's awful hard to look an alky in the eye when you're stoned anyhow, you know, because there's pure guilt involved there. And when you're looking at the enemy in the eye, and if you're sitting here with a couple of, you know, them funny ones in you and you're looking people in the eye, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Doesn't work too well. Guilt's a funny motivator. It's a deadly motivator. Guilt's probably the only reason I'm standing in front of you right now, because I was so damn guilty I had to do something about it. Yet they turn around and they give me another philosophy and they say, Noel, are you putting yourself above God? I said, what are you talking about? They said, well, do you believe in God? And at this time I did. And they said, do you believe God's all-powerful? I said, yeah. They said, you believe He's all-forgiving? Yeah. Well, if He's forgiven you, why haven't you forgiven yourself? And I had to think about that one. There was lots of things that I had to think about on the program. I had to learn to turn around to Noel and say, Noel, what you did was then, and what you're doing now is now. And if you can do the best you can do with yourself now, then maybe later on you can go back and correct some of the thens. But for God's sake, don't beat yourself up for what you did. Just pat yourself on the back for what you're doing. Now also, a newcomer, if you're sitting in here and you haven't had a drink for over 24 hours, I suggest you patting yourself on the back. You're doing something I know people cannot do. You're working a miracle in your own life. You're achieving a platform that is impossible for some of our brethren. Some of the alcoholics out there, excuse me, they don't make this program, some of the people who drink out there have to die. Some of the people in here will have to die. And I'm sorry to tell you, the odds are not very good. Probably next year this time, half of us won't be here. And I say half of us because that's the odds for me too. That's why I stay extremely active in Alcoholics Anonymous, because I don't want that. And if you're just coming in, you know what that is. And if you go to a lot of meetings and you remember what that is too. And I don't want that anymore, you know. I didn't understand that expression when I first came here. I never want to go back to that way of life, but I sure remember it today. You know, I never want to go back to that way of life. I sat in the back of the old round table back there and I listened to their philosophy, and you know, I watched them get up and I watched them go out and I watched them come back, and I sat in the back day after day. I had no place else to go. I'd make 2 meetings a day, sometimes 3. I made 2 meetings a day for a year and a half. In the first period of time though, I was only on this A&A because I was a court case, and I had my card. Hell, I had 2 cards filled up. You know, I had no place else to go with the bandage and the thing, and I was dirty, and I had no money anyhow, so couldn't drive, couldn't do anything. And I made my 90 meetings in 90 days, and I went back to the judge, and the judge took a look at my court card, and he said, "Oh, you've successfully completed the Lucky Deuce program. You can drink again. Just don't get in any trouble." Now, I don't know about you, but I'm probably the only alky in this room who has a court order to drink. Now, I don't know about you, and I know about me, and if you're an alky like me and you got a court order to drink, what do? I drink. Of course, I'd quit anti-abuse 2 days before I went to court. I don't think there's anything like slips. I think they're vaults. You know, we set ourselves up. Gazelling through life one day at a time, yeah, chasing my own tail. And I went out and drank, and I went on a 3-week bender, and I ended up places I shouldn't have been, with people I shouldn't have been with, spending money I didn't have, doing things that I shouldn't have done. And I woke up one morning, and I popped a can of beer open, because that's what you do when you're an alcoholic like I am, and you wake up in the morning. And I looked at that can of beer, and it struck me. And I don't know if it was a spiritual awakening per se or not, but it struck me that normal people don't wake up in the morning and open a can of beer. You taught me that. And all of a sudden it came to me that it takes effort to tell a lie. To manufacture a lie and to tell a lie takes effort. And nobody really expends any effort unless they get something back from it. And I had nothing to give Alcoholics Anonymous in those days. Nothing. I had no money, no friends, no prestige, no nothing. I mean, you got nothing. In fact, I ate your cookies, I lived on your donuts, I drank up all your coffee, and I put no money in the kicker because I didn't have any. And if you're sitting in here broke right now, welcome. Keep coming back. Drink the coffee, eat the cookies. God, we got lots of it. I don't know about here. I'm sure they have it just like we do. If you're like I was when I came in, sometimes that's all I had. My breakfast was a donut. My lunch was a couple of cookies. And I knew the best cookies in AA, man. I had them nailed. I knew the homemade cakes and the cookies, and I'm still a cookie freak. I don't drink, but I sure eat well. I came to the conclusion that it takes effort to manufacture a lie. Therefore, all those things that you told me from Alcoholics Anonymous, and in the round table there's some pretty healthy stories up here at the podium. You know, sleeping in the weeds, chicken and feathers, buckets full of worn out assholes, you know, cycle wards and lug bolts in the air and all that. I heard it all, you know. You probably have too. And I thought, well, you know, if they weren't lying to me, they were telling me the truth, and those things that I have to do yet will happen to me if I drink that beer. And it was that simple. I did the cardinal arch sin of any alcoholic beer drinker. I took an ice cold, fresh can of beer and I poured it down the drain. And I think at that time I symbolically turned my life and that can of beer over to Alcoholics Anonymous. Because in those days I didn't have a God. You know, I didn't have a God. I had that still the bolt of lightning God that comes from the sky. There's a book that we, yeah, you have it here. Some meetings they don't have it. There's a little black book up there called 24 Hours a Day, and that book got me to praying. That's not AA recommended literature, but any road to recovery as far as I'm concerned. The thing with that book is there's 3 parts to every page. Look, hold out 4 hands. 4 fingers. That's good. Not too nervous. There's 3 parts to that each page. The first part is a part of the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. The second part is a meditation, and the third part is a prayer. And that goes through every day. It was recommended, read the book, Noel, so I read it every morning. And what I would do, though, is because you don't pray, because you know he'll find you. If you're sitting in here and you know he's after you, don't pray, because you open up a channel. It's like calling your mother on the telephone. You got to pay for the long-distance call, right? Don't pray, because he'll know where you are. And I didn't. But all of a sudden, my eyes would slip down, I'd go into the meditation in that page. And after a while, I was reading through the AA philosophy, the meditation, my eyes would slip down, and I'd read the prayer. And it struck me one day I was praying. And I looked around, and the roof was still there, and the windows were intact, and I hadn't been sent to hell, but I was praying. And it came to me it was okay to pray. It was okay to pray, and I didn't have to pray to anyone. But it was okay to pray, and so therefore I started praying. Now, there's a lot of philosophies that go on in Alcoholics Anonymous. And there's a lot of things that they taught me that are symbolized by certain things that I have on me, that I can touch and feel and see and carry with me wherever I go. We give away chips. You give away chips at this meeting, and they're to hold on to touch, to feel, to have with you. But one guy at the podium of Alcoholics Anonymous, after a multitude of priests tried, one guy in Alcoholics Anonymous stood up, and I don't even remember who it was today, but he proved to me there is a God. And I'd like to do that for you right now. He pulled out of his pocket a pocket knife. Simple little thing like a pocket knife. And he held it up and he says, you know, I carry this pocket knife with me, and it's pretty sharp. If I give you this pocket knife, could you cut yourself? And I thought, yeah, I could drag it across my finger and I could cut myself and draw blood. He says, that's okay. He says, you can do that. You can cut yourself. He says, can you heal yourself? And I had to think about that. You know, I can tape it, I can sew it, I can stitch it, I can bind it, I can glue it, but I can't heal it. It's got to heal. Something's healing it. I'm not doing it. I can't heal that wound. Because if you aren't healing it, who is? And boy, that took me a while. You know, I had to really stop and think about that.
You can call it osmosis, you can call it body function, you can call it anything you want to call it. I prefer to call it God. But I'm not doing it. Therefore, it is a power greater than myself. It's doing something I can't do. Voila. You see how simple it was? All of a sudden, I was relaxing, thinking of a God, a healing God that I could pray to. You opened up a whole new vista in my life. A whole new vista in my life. And I understood the terms spiritual. Because it is a spiritual program. You know, and if God bothers you, I'm sorry. You certainly aren't going to bother God. And, this program is a very God-oriented thing. I spend more time talking God philosophy, spirituality, and Alcoholics Anonymous than I ever did going to church. You know, this is one of the greatest ways in the world that I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of people do it, to return back to their church. I haven't. What I've done is I've switched my allegiance from, rather than going to church, as the beach meeting on Sunday. But I know when I'm down there on the beach that I'm in God's church. And I'm down there working in God's work and doing what I'm asked to do, doing God's bidding. So the other thing that came out of that was the wristwatch, and I like to tell this one from the podium too. Excuse me. One of my first sponsors, who's decided to go out and practice his disease some more, he said from the podium, he says, you know, I bought a wristwatch. And you know what this wristwatch does? It tells me the time. See, it's something I could hold on to, something I could feel, something I could see. He says, it tells me the time. It does a real good job of it. That's what I wanted when I bought it. If I take the back off the watch and I try and figure out how it tells the time or why it tells the time, I'm a bigger fool than I give myself credit. I'm not a watch repairman. I don't know anything about the watch. Okay? Now, I have since had the battery go out and tried to fix it myself, and I had to take it to a watch repairman anyhow, right? But if I take the back of the watch off and try and fix it, that's dumb. What do? I take it to a watch repairman. Who's the watch repairman in AA? Someone who knows how to fix the watch. Preferably a sponsor. I'm heavily into sponsorship, and I believe wholehearted in it. And if you don't have a sponsor, get off your duff and get one. Girls, guys, girls, guys. I don't care what. You know, the reason is if you don't know how to do this thing, and evidently you didn't when you came here, how in the hell do you think you're going to know how to do it now? Right? But if somebody's been around here doing it, go up to them, wrap them upside the head and say, hey, when did you have your last drink? And if they've been around here for any length of time and you want what they have and you see in them something that you like, go to meetings where they go and do what they do. And chances are you might get what they have. If you can look them in the eye and fall into their eyes and see that peace and contentment, that I don't have it whipped, but I got a handle on it that I see in some eyes. That's what I want. That's what I'm willing to go to any lengths for today. I saw that in the old timers, and by God, I went to the old timers meetings. You know, I love double-digit sobriety. I'm 7.5 years now, and I'm shooting. I'm God hoping and the creek don't rise that I'll hit that double-digit because I'm impressed. You know, I'm impressed with I don't know if you are, but I'm impressed with my 7.5 years. And, you know, it might be ego to you, but it's goddamn excitement to me. Because, you know, here's a guy couldn't put 7.5 days together. And I'm turning around thinking to myself, God, I'm downhill to 10. And to me, 10's the magic number. You know, 10 is the magic number. Not that it's secure at 10. But God damn, that's a long time. You know, the only problem with getting to be an old timer on the program is you got to get old. Is that all right? That's good. I'm glad you said that. Give me hope. I'm getting there. So anyhow, I got this maggot manner thing, and I'm sitting in the round table, and I'm getting all this philosophy and the watch and the bucket of assholes and the thing with the chickens today and feathers tomorrow. And I'm going crazy. I can mouth lip sync every pitch that ever came out. I'm going to 2 meetings a day, and I know when they clean their belly buttons and how many times they tie their shoes and whether they're mommy pie or they're daddy pie and the thing. And I'm going, my God, I'm going to go crazy. I'm going, I know all these backwards and forwards people. You know, I know everything they have to say. How many times do I have to listen to these pitches? And one of the guys came out and he says, you don't understand what's going on here. I said, what's that? He says, well, AA is like children's education on TV. Sesame Street number 57, you know. You hear it over and over and over and over again until you get it straight, until you can understand what it is. You're just like a baby. You just came here. You just quit wetting your pants and sucking on a bottle now, you know. Believe it or not, I went to Tears one time. I didn't know whether to put on long pants or short pants, you know. You can tell I'm not too well wrapped today. Anyhow, the girl that plugged my head into a light socket, she came up and she said, Noel, there's other meetings other here in a round table, and I didn't know that. The only meeting I'd gone to was there, and that was the only people I knew and the only thing that I knew. I didn't know that there was other Alcoholics Anonymous other than that. And I was secure and I was comfortable. And I didn't want to go out of that secluded area, secure area. And she said, no, there's other things to do. Why don't you come down to a meeting in East Bay? And I said, no, I'm not going to go to any other meeting. She said, well, I'll meet you there tonight. And I don't know, I guess I just, was so tired of listening to the same pitches over and over and over again, I went down there. Now I walked into that meeting, and that was a kissy-huggy meeting. Still is. I'm secretary of that group today. I walked in that door now. Now, remember, Noel was kind of ripe when he comes to Alcoholics Anonymous, right? And in the round table, they ain't a real cheery group, you know? So nobody was getting too close to Noel in those days, period. And I walked through the door, and all of a sudden this old broad throws her arms around me, plants a big old smoocher on my lips, and this other guy gives me a big hug, and I almost peed in my pants, you know? Jesus, the unqualified, the love that you walk through the door and they just grab you and give you a big old hug, and it scared me to death. Like I said, I'm secretary of that group today. I love it. I love kissy huggy meetings. I think the greatest thing in the world is the hugs, the smiles, and the kisses extended in Alcoholics Anonymous, because, there was days when that really held me together. I knew they wanted me to come back. I knew they wanted me there. Nobody wanted Noel anywhere. But I knew they wanted me there. They kept saying, keep coming back. Keep coming back. It gets better. It gets better. Well, where it was, it had to get better because there was nothing going on, folks. I went to another meeting after that, and it was called Los Altos. And I went in there, and a lady came up to me, and she did the same thing. And of course, now I got another trick for you newcomers. Listen up, okay? This is a trick. I don't want you to get really confused with this A&A thing. Go to meetings early. Don't go late. Now, there's a reason for that, and it's not to get you to help set up the chairs and put out the tables or set up the meeting. That might save your life, okay? What it is that sitting in a bar and somebody walks in the door, everybody turns around and looks, right? And if you sat in a bar like I did, you know that somebody walks in, everybody turns around and looks. Well, if you're paranoia like I am, you don't want nobody seeing you because they'll know you're a newcomer, right? Because I look like a newcomer. But if I got there early, everybody had to walk in on me like you all did tonight. I got here early, right? Newcomers, get there early. Now, when you get there early, for God's sake, don't hold out your hand and say hello. Just sit there and be quiet, and if there's some sicko like me walking around, he'll know you're new anyhow, because I'll go up and say hello to you. Most of the people who are active on the program Alcoholics Anonymous and have any program worth a damn are usually early at the meetings, shaking hands with the newcomers as they come through the door. Now, newcomer, here's another trick. Don't leave early. Why? Because when you get up, everybody's going to turn around and look at you. That's right. They're going to say that cheap bastard won't put $1 in the till. Right? Stick around after the meeting and help pick up the ashtrays. And, when I thought I came here, I said, we need you newcomers. You're the lifeblood of AA. And I thought, yeah, it's the Elks and the Lions again. Here we go. We need new guys to do all the work for the old timers. But basically what it comes down to is while you're cleaning those cups and while you're doing those little chores around, putting up the chairs, you just might hear that one thing that may save your life. Because guess who's putting up the chairs, and guess who's taking care of the cups, and guess who's setting the meeting back down? It's the old timers who've been around for a while because they know that's where to meet the newcomers. Don't get yourself too involved with these people now, because they just might save your life. Okay? Always sit in the back of the room. Remember, this is a contagious thing here. I got out of that and I went into a lot of Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. And I've turned into they used to say, Noel, you're hiding in AA. I went to meetings all the time, every day, all over the place. Anywhere we got in the car one time, we went all the way up to 29 Palms. We had to go into a liquor store to find out where the meeting was, right? Walked in the door, and there's Mary from East Bay, and she says, hi, kids, how are you? You know, and I'm going, geez, I go all the way out here, and somebody knows me. I went to Barstow and spoke. I knew somebody out in Barstow. You know, I make meetings all over. I'm willing, and there's another trick, newcomers. God, I hate to just speak of the newcomers. Some of the old-timers need it, too. I really wish that you would understand the term willing to go to any lengths. It's in the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. It says, you know, if you're willing to go to any lengths to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. Now, any lengths before tonight was the speaker meeting in Barstow. That was about any lengths. Any lengths close to that is the speaker meeting in Big Bear. And any lengths is the speaker meeting in Solvang tonight for me. But I'm willing to go to any lengths at any time, period. Because when I came off that last beer, when I popped that beer over and I turned it back and poured it down the drain, I knew at that time I was willing to walk off the end of Belmont Pier 3 times a day if that's what it took to never take another drink. I knew the drinking was going to get me. Had nothing to do with my wife, nothing to do with my kids, nothing to do with the job, no job, or whatever. It was the drinking that was going to get me. And I was willing to do anything you told me to. And when I sniveled through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous one more time, oh, by the way, I'm here on a vendetta. I'm here on a campaign. Everyone knows there's 12 steps in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Some of us are familiar with the 13th step. Not too many in this room, I guess. She is. The 13th step is let's work the rest of the steps and then go to bed. But I'm here to start a 14th step in Alcoholics Anonymous. I think the 14th step in Alcoholics Anonymous should read, thou shalt not snivel. I think that's, you know. Here's Noel. I'm sniveling through the door. One more ice. I drank. Sit down. Shut up. Didn't work, did it, asshole? You know. Sit down, do it all over again and start from day one. I didn't want to hear that. I sat in the back of the room and I banged my head against the wall and I pounded on my head. And, I go home and cry and I wonder, what the hell is going on? All I'm doing is not taking a drink. Day by day, by 24 hours, it got better and it got better. And if that's all I can tell you tonight is don't drink and it gets better. My life, I didn't drink and it got better. I've been allowed to, I told I'm going to move to Missoula, Montana forever. And the old timers, God love them, they'd look at me and they'd smile and they'd say, that's okay, you got enough sobriety, you'll be back. Oh no, you don't understand, this is forever move. My wife and kids, they don't want me, I've taken care of all my bills. I'm going to move to Missoula, Montana, I got a job up there in a place that they'd smile at me with that chicken shit AA smile, That's okay, Noel. You got enough sobriety. You'll be back. How do they always know, And I went up to Montana, and I went around Montana and Washington. I ended up staying in Tacoma, Washington for a year. And the reason I did that, I didn't know at the time. The reason I did that was to let my wife and family cool off down here, because then I was allowed to return to my family and to my children and to that middle-class bourgeois Noel, just old Noel. Huntington Beach Noel. But today, Noel's neighbors come over and talk to him. Today, I can go into my neighbors' houses. Today, I'm not the drunken bum of the neighborhood. I'm Noel. I'm not the most successful person in the neighborhood, but I'm Noel. And it's good enough today just to be Noel, for Noel. I had to learn that Noel was good enough. Being a lawyer, an attorney, a doctor, an Indian chief doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters to me today is that I'm real comfortable being Noel. I don't know about you, but I remember scratching from the inside. Scratching, I just wanted out. I just wanted out. Too cowardly to do anything about it. But I sure didn't want to be who I was and where I was and what I was doing. I didn't want to be Noel. And today I'm very comfortable being Noel. I didn't do it. I didn't do it today. I can honestly look at you and say I didn't do it. And if I did do it, I'm sorry. I apologize quickly. When we are wrong, promptly admit it. By God, I know that step. because I do a lot of wrong. And not intentionally in some cases, and intentionally I'll step on your head. I don't mean to. I really don't. And I know it's bad. And I know that anger and resentments are my worst enemy, but I still get caught up in that crap. For God's sake, I'm glad they put in the big book, we are not saints. We're only trying to grow along spiritual lines. We're trying to achieve spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection, because I'm always looking for the great perfectionism in Noel. I want to get it perfect, and I get frustrated. And then you criticize me because I'm upset and I get pissed. Don't you know how goddamn wonderful I am? And then I have to apologize. And God, I hate to apologize. And my wife was saying the other day that love is never having to apologize. And I don't know if I've come to that yet. I've come to a lot of love, but I sure apologize a lot, because I have to. I must tell you when I'm wrong, when I know I'm wrong. And when I go home at night, I do like Ted Arbuck says, I lay my head on the pillow, and I think about what went over the day, what went on during the day, and I do a little meditation, you might call it, and I say thank you, God, for another day of sobriety. I try to say that every evening. Don't succeed sometimes. And I bury my head in the pillow, and I look over what I did during the day, and if I did any wrong, I try to remember the next day to go out and correct that wrong, because I don't want to carry it around. That's really hell in my stomach, to carry around that gut feeling of being wrong. And in the morning when I wake up, I bury my head in the pillow just a little bit deeper, and I try and say, help. Just help me make it through another day. Then I put one foot on the floor, and I put the other foot in front of that foot, and I trudge. And some woman told me once, she says, I don't like that word trudge. That's a hard word. And I said, the word trudge is a glorious word. The definition of the word trudge is to move ahead slowly. And just recently my wife pointed out to me that it also in that definition says bearing a burden. And today the burden I bear is Noel. And I'm moving ahead slowly. My life is improving slowly. And thank God it isn't gazelling, running amok. I'm moving ahead slowly, advancing in life on God's terms, not my terms. Because every time I did it my way, I got me screwed up. I got me thrown in jail. I got me to Alcoholics Anonymous. The leper farm, the socially unacceptable place of the world. And today, with the help of all the people in Alcoholics Anonymous, I can go back out there, and they told me at the round table also, they said, Noel, you don't have to stay here on the Skid Row. You don't have to stay here on 4th Street. You can return to society on any level you choose to if you don't drink. If you drink, you have to drink. If you don't drink, you can do anything you want to do if you're willing to pay the price. And that's the way it was for me. I've done an awful lot since I've been on the program. I've since turned into a convention junkie. I go to lots of conventions. That's how I got to this meeting at San Fernando Valley Convention. I passed my card around enough and told them I wanted to come up here, because I hear this is playing the Ritz. I'm very happy to be here tonight. When you've done Solvang, you've done it all, they say. But I have this philosophy on going to conventions. I need a motorhome and a shotgun. The motorhome's to get me all the conventions. The shotguns to rob liquor stores on the way, because they get to be a little expensive after a while. But I've met a lot of people, and I've grown, and my family has grown. You are my family. You people have given me everything I have today, and I don't even know you. You people have given me my family back, and I don't even know who you are. You people have given me a philosophy to make it one day at a time, and make it well. Not just make it. Make it's okay, but make it well is better. You people have given me all this, and you give it to me free, and you keep saying, have some more. Keep coming back. One of the guys says, Alcoholics Anonymous, coming into Alcoholics Anonymous is like coming into a cake. I don't want the crumbs. I don't want to come in and just get a piece of it. I want the whole damn cake. I want it all. And you people keep saying, here it is. Here's more. I have another philosophy about being God's tool, kind of new in my pitch. I think each and every one of us are an instrument of God's peace. There's a little sign around it. Some of the halls have it. that God let me be an instrument of thy peace. I have a plaque up on my wall, and a friend of mine gave it to me a couple of years ago, and I didn't understand it until recently. And I really firmly believe that God is the big designer and big engineer of life. And what he's doing up there is his business, and I don't profess to know what's going on. I accept today. But I think each of us being a tool and a craftsman, God being the craftsman of life, uses us any way he wants to. And he has a big table, and he's got all these tools on this table to do the job that he's working on, just like any craftsman would. My problem was I fell off the table down into the muck and the mire. And I wasn't available when he looked around for me because I was down there sinking in my own slime, getting drunker and drunker and following deeper and deeper into that degradation of alcoholism. And what happened was all of a sudden he needed me and he couldn't see me, and he reached down, he picked me up out of the muck and the mire, and he shook me off and he set me in AA. And he said, Noel, he says, I got a job for you to do now. It's your business. If you clean up your rack, I'm going to use you. If you don't, you're going to end up in the muck and the mire again. I'll get somebody else. So what happens? I had to clean up my act. And if you know, in any cleaning process, it's abrasive. And when you get an abrasion, it hurts. And there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of joy, but there's a lot of pain to growing up. And I hope today that I have grown up enough to sparkle to be useful. So God picked me up now, and he puts me into a place called Solvang, and he lets me speak to you people from the podium. And he uses me for this one act. And he uses me for a lot of other acts because I work with a lot of people on the program. And when he's done with me, he takes me off the machinery of life, and he puts me back on the table. And it's up to me to keep me ready to go at any time to be used again. Or else he's going to find somebody else. And he's going to use him or some other lady. And then what happens when they put him back down on the shelf of life? I get moved over a notch. And you know what's at the end of the shelf? And I'm not willing to pay that price to fall off that shelf down in the muck and the mire again. No, thank you. I want to be ready to go at any time, to go anywhere I'm called to in Alcoholics Anonymous or any phase of life that I'm used for in God's life. Because it's his business what goes on up here. I'm not going to take off the back of the watch. It's okay today that Noel hasn't had a drink. It's okay today that I'm sober. And it's okay today that I'm a normal member of society. And it's okay today that I'm Noel. You know, it wasn't okay when I came here. And you've given me all that. You in a program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and a philosophy that I couldn't get. I didn't understand. And they said, keep coming back. Eventually, you'll either get the program or you'll get drunk. And it was that simple. And it's that simple, newcomer. Please just don't drink. Just don't drink. Maybe, if you're lucky, the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous can happen to you like it's happened to me. Thank you.